Welcome, comrades, to the glorious People's Podcast Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. I am, of course, comrade Jeremy Vilmur, and joining us now, first among equals, Bobby Blaze.
I want my foreskin back. You know what? I used to have big dick there, Professor. I ain't gonna lie to you. Yeah, I was just a baby. I don't remember it, of course, but my grandmother told my mom that she thought that they took too much foreskin off my dick. So therefore, I think at one time I probably had a pretty big dick, but they cut all that damn foreskin off. So I'm enforcing the rule. I want my foreskin back. I don't know what the fuck they done with it. But anyway, there you go. But 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, I was a year behind because I got held back all those years. So I had a bigger dick than anyone in the class. Of course, I was in 4th grade. I was 15 years old. You know, eventually, all caught up with me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm below average at best. Anyway, how are you? And how's your foreskin, motherfucker? So much for the language. Sorry.
Well, there's always next week. So, you know, what's funny is I actually have 3 different foreskin jokes I could go into, but, you know, my ex-wife used to work at the Santa Cruz AIDS Project when we lived down there. So we were at the Pride festivals every year, you know, and, you know, you get used to seeing what you see. There's like, you know, people come through on stilts and shit, and they're dressed like, you know, fucking circus people and whatever, and cars come through. And then like the dykes with bikes come through, and then like, you know, just whatever goes on, you know, the bears and all that shit. And then this group comes through and they got signs up and it's my body, my choice. And I'm like, what the fuck are these guys protesting? And it was, you know, that getting circumcised, like before you say, hey, circumcise me. And yeah. I'm just like, I just can't get worked up about this. You know, I don't know if I'm just being whatever, but I'm like, you know, I never had to deal with dick cheese because my parents made a wise decision when I was young, and I'm good with it. You know,
I'm good with it. They can keep that foreskin up there, you know, at the hospital. That's fine.
Yeah, you know, one of my godsons isn't circumcised, right? And I remember when he was a kid, he was running around naked one time, and I'm like, that's weird. And his mom's like, what? And I go, well, there's like more and less of his dick than there should be.
Looks like a fucking anteater.
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck is going on over there, but something's off. Something's wrong with that thing.
Yeah.
Is his dick wearing a turtleneck? Is that what's going on?
I don't know, man. I just said that because I don't know, man. I just thought at one time I had a bigger dick, and apparently now I don't. And I'm not here to swing dick. I'm here to talk about a podcast. And also maybe have a drink or two. I know we're recording at a different time. It's not Sunday afternoon, it's Monday, and I'm going to get into that in just a minute when we go into the marquee event. But, yeah, so if you've seen Blue Velvet, or, that movie with Dennis Hopper plays Frank and the well-dressed man in that movie. And he says, well, here's the fuck, you know, and the guy says, you know, was it Kyle McCanahan or whatever? He's like, he gives them a beer and they get like some PBRs and they're driving down the street and, you know, there's like, Jeffrey, a ride. Yes, a ride. Let's go. And it's just one of those things that you're just like, what the fuck, man, that movie. I was thinking of Frank, the well-dressed man played by Dennis Hopper, and I'm going like, Jeremy, here's the fuck. You know, I know we're just having a good time because it's a different time is what I was getting at than we normally record at. And we're going to have fun with this, but it's also a very serious podcast coming up about someone who means a lot to me. So anyway, I just want to throw out there, here's the fuck.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I get you. So this week, and I kind of thought maybe you wouldn't want to do this episode. I was surprised when you said yes.
Yeah.
Because I know other ones come up where it's people that you know, and you're like, I know, you know.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 of them, and I'm like,
that's a pass. So obviously, with my little Soviet propaganda opening, we're going to be talking.
Very well.
We're going to be talking this week about, I'm going to use this kayfabe name. You call him what you like, but the great / Professor Boris Malenko.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to this. I have a lot of what I hope to be good stories. I dedicated my first book to them. We'll come back to that. I'm just going to give you a brief rundown for anyone out there that just now tuning into our podcast. I think we have mostly old school fans. Mm-hmm. We done a regional heels, and Professor Boris Malenko was brought up, I think, at like number 5, and that's when Tex was with us. R.I.P. Tex and Boris Malenko. Mm-hmm. I just want everyone to know this is WrestleMania week that we're recording this in. It is the marquee event in sports. Get that uncircumcised cock out of my throat, motherfucker. Entertainment, sorry. WrestleMania number 37. So if you're listening to this on Tuesday morning, you've probably already watched Monday is Raw on USA. I think on Tuesday on a Peacock in the network, you have the Hall of Fame. I like WrestleMania. This is my Super Bowl week, even though I may or may not watch it this year. I'm just saying. Wednesday, you have TakeOver. It's called, I think it's Shout and Deliver or Stand and Deliver. That's on USA, the Peacock and the network. Friday, you got SmackDown on Fox. And on Saturday and Sunday, night 1, you got Mania. Peacock and the network, and on Sunday the 11th, night 2, and that's Peacock and network. And of course, they followed up with next week was Raw the 12th and on USA, and then NXT on USA the next night. I may or may not watch any of that, but if you are, please enjoy it. Take it for what it's worth, man. As you said, this is a people's podcast of the people, by the people, for the people, Professor. And I just want to put that out there because I really appreciate each and every fan we have. Disregard all the coarse or harsh language. We have fun in this podcast, as you know. And when you said Professor Boris Malenko was going to be our topic this week, I was like, yeah, it's time. I'm all for it. Let's do it. And I appreciate that opportunity to do that. And let's have fun with it, man. Any questions, fans listening at home, wherever you listen to in your car, on the way to work, to and from your, whether you're out doing your yard work or whether you're, on a escalator or an elevator or a fucking
alligator
subway or an alligator. There you go. If you're in Florida, there you go. Good one. Enjoy it for what it's worth. Let's have fun with it, but we're going to also be serious. So thank you.
Yeah. As we, kind of get ready to switch over to our main topic, I do want to say, WrestleMania is coming, but I saw what I might count as the greatest match that the WWE could have ever put on last week.
What's that?
Godzilla versus Kong. Yeah.
Man, I've been wanting to see that. I heard Kong had a good drop kick.
He's got a pretty solid drop kick and a nice little knee to the face maneuver that he does.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, he does a lot of there's a lot of like wrestling type moves in there because Kong has to stay mobile to be able to fight Godzilla, so he's got to get up on top of buildings and drop on them and stuff. And it's
death from above.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. And there's a scene in there because they just call him Kong, but there's a scene in there where they literally have him sitting on a throne holding an axe in that Conan the Barbarian kind of pose.
Oh, I like that.
It's pretty badass. Yeah, it was definitely worth the watch.
I will. And here's the thing. I went to watch some Major League Baseball had opening season, opening day this week. My team, the Orioles, the O's got rained out the first day. I went back the second day to watch it with my brother and my nephew. And my nephew says, I can get you on HBO Max. I don't have my password for whatever it was. I wasn't there, but he says, I'll get it. And you can, I have openings. You're more welcome to join on my ID or whatever you fucking do there. So I'm looking forward to watching that actually.
It's you know what? It's an hour and a half. There's only a little bit, like literally a human being starts talking, get up, take a leak. It's not gonna, literally the human beings are just there to facilitate moving other people around.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it.
Yeah,
I've heard good stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely fun, and it's
cool.
It's stupid and it's silly and it's fun to watch, and
that's okay, right?
Yeah,
that's what it's all about, man. Escape from reality sometimes, you know.
Exactly.
Good deal. All right, so you told me to call him whatever I want. I'll call him. He was my coach, my mentor, a friend, and a father-like figure to me, and that's the great Professor Boris Malenko. As his son Dean said, sometimes he was too good-hearted. My dad, that's Dean quoting this. Also this week, sources Mike Mooneyham. Shout out at Mike Mooneyham at Mike Says on Twitter. Sometimes he's too good-hearted. My dad was like a father figure to a lot of kids in the school. He not only trained them, he was a father figure type to them. He liked helping others, and he wasn't into material things. And I'll say this, at that time when Mr. Professor Malenko, Mr. Malenko, I called him a lot of times, and that's the Southern thing when I'd say Mr. Malenko. Dean and I was in a lot of contact at that point, and Dean contacted me personally, keep me, because I had left Florida at that point. I was working for Smoky Mountain, and Dean kept me abreast as to what was going on. And even the day that once Larry Simon was his real name, passed away. And I never will forget that Dean and I share that moment. And also I know Joe Malenko also. He even wrote something in my first book about that. This Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel. I dedicated that book. It says this book is dedicated to Larry Simon, a.k.a. or PK, professionally known as the great Professor Boris Malenko. And Joe thanked me for that. And they both said, well, we just had such a small part in your training. It was a big part in my training and breaking into the business, because I had several matches prior to going to Tampa, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But he became like a father figure to me, and I still hear sometimes his voice echoing in my head. Sometimes when I'm training or trying to help someone else, or I'm doing an act of kindness, I'm seeking nothing out of this. I'm just saying, hey, pay it forward, motherfuckers. That's what it's all about. You know what I'm saying? You can be kind and caring, and I know sometimes we do that, and maybe we do it too much, but you know what? Maybe you don't do it enough. But that was Professor or Larry Simon or Boris Malenko. He was soft-spoken. He spoke to me, and I don't want to get tear-eyed. We'll get down. Kind of let you start there, Jeremy.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm going from. He was my mentor, my coach, my friend, and he was a father figure to me, man. So,
I understand it. So the professor there, I'm kind of my namesake at this point.
Yes, absolutely, because you're more than a savant. I told you that over 2 years ago now, I guess, when I said a professor, that was in honor of Professor Boris Malenko, but also a lot of these podcasts, people go back when I used the term professor for you, because you come up all these notes and all these ideas from the past, or let's go this way. And then you'll have all the knowledge about it, whether it be WCCW, whether it be way back when in WWF, or even something as mostly, we like, obviously, the NWA. You're a big fan of the AWA. You have all that knowledge. And I was like, man, this motherfucker is like a professor. And that's a straight shoot. So take that. I think you said it to someone on Twitter one time. You're like, well, my broadcasting partner, Bobby Blaze, or I don't even know if you mentioned me. You just said he bestowed that moniker upon me. Dude, I mean it. You're like a fucking professor, dude. You know your shit, man. That's whether you're Mike Tenay, Boris Malenko, or whatever, man. You got your shit together as far as research, history, and here it is. Here's the facts, jacked. And here it is, Yeah. So, no, I when I said that, I meant it and I still sincerely mean it, with the most sincere respect. You earned that title, Professor.
Well, thank you, and I definitely take it with the intent that it was given. So what I wanted to get into real quick is I don't know as much about Boris Malenko as I probably should. He was definitely a Florida guy and a Carolinas guy, and, he retired while I was a little kid, basically. Now his son, Dean, is one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I think, he is a fucking just, he might need a stepladder, but he's head and shoulders above everybody else. But also, obviously right there, Professor Malenko also trained one of my best friends, my broadcast partner. So, here's a guy I should know more about. So let's talk a little bit about some of the people he trained.
Oh, yeah. You want to start listing them or should I?
I'll read off a couple names, then if anything catches your attention, let me know. Bill Eadie.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Orton Jr.
Yep.
Sean Waltman.
Yep.
Mark
That's
Merrow.
when I was there. Mm-hmm. Mark Merrow was there. I'll tell you a story about Mark Merrow in just a second.
Yeah. Fred Ottman.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy Landell. You know Buddy.
Yep.
Paul
Very
Diamond.
Well.
Yeah. Paul Diamond. Alan Lou Perez. Barry Horowitz. Bob Cook. Jumbo Beretta. And, of course, our own Bobby Blaze.
Yeah. I spoke to two of those people this week. I spoke with Bob Cook. Bob Cook started. Shout out Bob if you're listening. Also shout out Sean Waltman, the 1-2-3 Kid or X-Pac. Sean wants to hear this, and I hope you're very pleased with this, Sean. And Bob, if you're listening, that's great. Bob started in 1981 when Malenko and we talked about this off the air last week. The Badcock Furniture Department deal where he's wrestling a mattress.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure all this ties in, but I know Bob Cook started back in 81 when his first school was in the back, or early on when his first school was back in the back of a mattress warehouse. So that was the first place. When I broke in, he moved up to a barn out in Valrico, Tampa, or out in Valrico, Florida. But I was only there a few months before the Japanese influence came, and we moved into Industrial Park on a Lazy Lane out off of Del Mabry Avenue out there between Fowler and I'm talking Tampa Times, Busch Garden, way out there. Anyway, Buddy Landell told me, Malenko used to make him do these exercises, and I'm like, buddy, I've done them, I know. And I broke in when I was about 12 or 13 matches when I broke in September 11th, 1988. I thought I knew stuff about wrestling, but I didn't. I'd had like 3.5, 4 months training up here in the Kentucky area. And I went to a show in December of that year, and I'd wrestled, like I said, 12, 13 matches, whatever it was, 15. I wouldn't call them matches. It was more like, here's what we're going to do. And I'd managed a couple shows, et cetera, et cetera. And I had a match against the one guy I trained with. And anyway, I was on an NWA show. The guy that broke me in, Rick Newsom, put me on this NWA show, Pikeville, Kentucky. Someone no-showed, but Buddy Landell had driven up with Hector Guerrero from Knoxville, and Jimmy Valiant was there. And I wish to this day I remember who didn't show, but anyway, I wrestled like third match. Long story short, when they needed someone to fill in for the main event, Buddy said, put that boy right there with me. And Buddy said, hey, just listen to me and follow my lead. And that's when I first met Buddy. And anyway, the match went on. I just watched, and I was like, oh, fuck, these guys are professionals. This is what it's like to be a professional. And I talk about this in my book. Again, it's Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots for Travel. And I was like, fuck, these guys know how to work. This is professionalism. And when Buddy tagged me in, and I did this and did that or whatever, finally Jimmy Valiant just held my arm behind my back, and he said, just catch him, brother. And last set, Hector Guerrero, who was wrestling as Lasertron, went up to the top rope, done a cross body. Valiant let my arms go. I caught Hector, and he went away down going, thank you, brother. And I was 1, 2, 3, and holy fuck, this whole fucking thing's a work. And I told Buddy to back. I'm like, I knew it, but I didn't, because I had those matches. And I said, how long y'all been in this business if we're not greedy anymore? He said, it'll take you a long time. Just get trained. You got a good body, which I did at the time. Got a good look, which I, again, not bragging about. I'm like 24, 25 years old. I'm like, yeah, and I'm listening to Buddy Landell, who's fucking, self-glamorous, combing his hair, got the tan and the whole thing. He's been in the business forever. And so anyway, long story short, I knew then, I was like, man, I need real fucking training. And I had been sending out letter after letter after letter. And to promoters, I saw something in the back of a magazine to wrestling schools. And you got to realize this is like late 80s. That, wrestling was hot.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to say this right now. Marvin Joel, X-Pac, Sean, if you're out there, Marvin Joel, man. He wrote me a letter back. I had originally went up to the Monster Factory, drove up there, spent a couple of days. It just didn't feel right. Marvin Joel out of Minnesota wrote me and said, hey, you want to go to a school, get a hold of Phyllis Lee and go to the Malenko School. They're the best craftsmen in the business. Sent me some flyers, some info, and a number. And I called Phyllis Lee. I knew I was going to be in Orlando that summer for a couple of weeks. And I said, if I come to Orlando, which I knew was about 90 miles from Tampa, could I come down and just show you what I got? And that's what's happened. I went down there on a Saturday morning, and I was in Orlando, and I went down Tampa, and Malenko called me a little match, put me through some stuff, and he said, hey, forget everything you know about wrestling, Bobby. God bless you. But those guys up here in West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee, they just want to punch and kick and beat the shit out of each other. I'll teach you how to wrestle. And that's how I met them. And I was like, okay. And within a few months, I moved from Orlando down Tampa. And I just started going 4 days a week. And he just kind of took me under his wing. Within 4 months, Dean, who had been overseas quite a bit at that point, Dean come back with myself and another guy named Rico Federico, and he said, hey, I hear you guys are pretty advanced. Let me start helping you. Because, he's taking over for his dad, basically, to run the school. And the rest is history, man. That's how it kind of happened. And so, yeah, now, good stuff, man.
So, as I understand it, the professor there was very much in that kind of Carl Gotch school of wrestling.
Yeah. Carl came by several Sundays. They used to shoot wrestling. Once they got 2 rings, Masami, who was Gotch's son-in-law, they would do shoot wrestling. Joe Simon, Jody Malenko come by one Sunday, some and helped. And I just happened to stay. I was such a student of the game. I observed and watched. But the first time Gotch came in there, he walked through the gym by the training ring, I should say that, when it's, got 2 big rings up there. He walked straight by myself and Larry, and he went over to where they was training shoot style. And Larry said, see that guy right there? That's one tough son of a bitch. And I'm just sitting there looking at this guy. Carl was about 60 years old and was in great shape and big and strong still. And he goes, yeah. He goes, another school I had, he said, imagine this, that room right there. He pointed to a side door. He said, you talk about plywood and sheetrock. And he said, Joe wanted to be a shooter, wanted to be a wrestler. He said, let Gotch train you. And I heard this. Joe told me, first day he went Gotch was, he's like 11 years old or something. Gotch made like 75 fucking Hindu squats first day. Like, oh, fuck, So anyway, all that said, he said, yeah, he threw my son through a wall. I'm like, fuck, that's my son, It's just tough. But anyway, bottom line is the first time I met Gotch, because he come in, went over and spoke to Joe and left. No introductions, no nothing. He just straight, to Larry's house one day to watch some matches, evaluate our training, whatever. And when I walked in, Carl Gotch was sitting there. And he just grabbed my hand and went, Gotch! And he had long hair and I had long hair. And I said, yes, sir. I know who you are. Because by this time, X-Pac 123 had told me, like, this guy's like the god of wrestling in Japan, Bobby. I up here in the hills, you're like, who the Professor Boris Malenko. I remember from ICW in the Southeastern or whatever, vividly, just small parts of a guy's career. But Carl Gotts, like he said, well, there used to be 38 territories in this country, and I don't know because I got fired from every one of them or whatever, But I'm like, yes, sir, So that's kind of my first quote introduction to Gotch. But we'll come back to that another time probably. But anyway, a couple of times I saw, so he started coming around again. They had their ins and outs. Yeah, I just. I was there I'm training pro style, man. I'm not here to get fucking stretched, beat the fuck out of all that stuff because they knew what the hell they was doing. But at the Malenkos, at the camp, I never once saw anyone take liberties with anyone else or hurt anyone else because Joe and Dean and Larry, they were the best craftsmen in the business. And when they put you in a ring, and I tell people to this day, if I help anyone, I tell them, I'm the least person that you need to be worried about in the ring. I'm here to help you. What kind of coach, what kind of trainer, what kind of teacher would I be if I just get you up here and beat you up? I wouldn't be that way. You know what I'm saying? So I never take advantage of or liberties with people if I'm helping someone out because that's the way I was broken in. Once I started training for Larry, I never saw anyone get beat up, hurt, taking liberties with. Even though they could have, they was like, no, let's stop here. Here's what, do this. And they would show you how to wrestle and work, So anyway, let's go on. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of people in there. Buddy Landell, Paul Diamond, Jumbo Beretta, what a tremendous talent he was. Julio was his name, big Cuban guy. Bob Cook, what I always tell, I rib Bob Cook. Bob Cook, had one of the best punches, probably the best punch in the business other than Bobby Eaton. And also he done Terry. I used to rib him. I said, man, Bob, you do Terry Funk better than Terry Funk does Terry Funk. But there was a lot of guys that come through there, through the years. Jerry Flynn came through there. I'm just trying to think. Rico Federico, Willie Wilkinson Jr., who was a big star over in Japan for the shoot groups. And also he ended up, he was their policeman over there. He was their top trainer for Michinoku because he broke guys in the right way. Of course, he had trained under God, so he knew what the fuck he was doing, and that way. But he had trained Malenko, pro style. Just a lot of people, like you mentioned. Bob Orton Jr., Malenko told me, I trained him in my living room how to do the headlocks, switches, top wrist locks, and all this. And Bob Sr. apparently didn't want him in the business, but Bob Jr. wanted to do it, and Gotch and Malenko helped him, and the rest of the history. Now he's got a son that's one of the best in the business ever. Third generation wrestler, and Randy. But and X-Pac, Sean, 1, 2, 3, kid. When I was there, dude, we were just starving, looking for a place to stay. Sometimes we stayed with Phyllis Lee at her apartment. We stayed with his grandparents. Had a buddy that was training, lived out in Bradenton, Florida. I was just there. I had a little Chevette, man. I called it a vet. I said, don't fuck with my vet. It's a little Chevette. And then some people say, well, man, I thought you had a Rolls. And I said, I do have a Rolls. They said Rolls Royce, and I'm saying, no, it's a Rolls Ken Harley, man. It's just barely fucking rolled down the street, but we'd make those fucking shows and we'd make that training. And, it's one of those things. Got to meet some good people, and Tommy Nash and Gangrel, who was there, Dave Johnson from the they went to Calgary. A couple of them have just a lot of different guys that came through that I can't remember. Debbie Drake, man, comes to my mind. She got to go to over in Japan. They let her wrestle as Debbie Malenko over there, huge star over in Japan. She was scheduled to take Medusa's place. I think she got hurt. I see her sometimes on Twitter, and she's getting back into the business some. But just a talented girl that came through there, man. It's like, oh man, to get bestowed to go to Japan and use that Malenko name, they thought a lot of her. She was that talented,
That's pretty cool.
So that's all the names. And Bill Eadie I've met since then. I've talked to Mark Merrill. I was going to tell you, Mark Merrill came down, this big old tall guy, fuzzed out, big hairdo type deal. And he ended up being Van Hammer. They went up and done a couple of TVs, and Dusty said, "Hey, kid," and he named Mark Merrill Johnny B. Bad. You know, he was like, "Oh, that looks like Little Richard," and they gave him that. And I think they've been like 5 fucking sessions, if that tells you anything. And Van Hammer, same thing. This happened. Big guy, good look to him. Couldn't work with a shit, and I'll tell him to his face to this day. Good dude, but Van Hammer's like just right place, right time. Had that good look, you know. And he come out there guitar. I think the Steiner greased his fucking strap or something. He knocked himself out. Just, you know what I'm saying? But here's the thing: they went up there for TVs and done a couple, but they got a gimmick. They getting over. They doing his things. Van Hammer, I lost track of him forever. Yeah. But his first wife was from Harlan, Kentucky. And we hit it off because he's like, "Oh, Kentucky boy, my wife's from there." And he was like a fucking, at the time, he was like a hairdresser or something. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just taking my chances getting this business." And he done all right for, you know, a good while or whatever. Everyone has to run. But some of those guys came through there, you know. But they'll come through a couple 3 to 5 times because they got a good break, you know, and that's what it's all about, getting that break, man.
Well, yeah, because sometimes it matters more to be standing in the right place at the right time than it does to bust your ass. It just depends on what path is given to you. Yeah.
No. Anyway, yeah. So he's training a lot of guys, you know. I know where we're going next, man. Malenko had the false teeth deal.
Yep.
And he done that with Wahoo and Eddie Graham. I think Wahoo, I could be mistaken. I thought he told me they done it out in Texas, but it's probably in the Carolinas. And then, of course, Eddie Graham, they done it down in Florida for Florida Championship Wrestling Florida. And he'd take them out before the match and set them down on the apron, and then, you know, they built the whole angle of that where Eddie Graham or Wahoo went over and stomped his teeth, man, and that's just set off a feud. You know what I'm saying? Good book, imaginations, creativity, if you will. And then also, I think Malenko came back with in Florida. I know he did. He had like a bust made of himself. You know, you crushed my teeth, and of course he's getting new teeth, of course. Mm-hmm. But then we had a bust made of himself, and they busted that as the professor, etc. And I'm just kind of scanning over a lot of stuff there, but that was kind of a feud with Eddie Graham. And anyway, go ahead, man. Add me something. I got to drink of water, man. You're killing me.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You're hitting a very fertile thing. So I'm just going to let you riff. So let's talk a little bit about the difference in training, because you're telling me that when you got down to him, he's like, "All right, you learned what you learned up there, but now you're going to learn to wrestle." So what were some of the differences in between what you were taught? I mean, like some of the specific things that you can look at and go, you know, this is what I did up here, but this is what wouldn't have happened down here with Larry. I mean, what kind of...
Well, it was a work. It was a dance. You enter with your partner. How to lock up professionally. How to lock up, officials hold, or collar and elbow, if you call it. And how to do it professionally. You know, not that I didn't know how to lock up, but how to lock up. And I tell people this, students I've helped or people I've helped in the past, and I got a job by locking up with a guy in a shower, and that was with Bobby Fulton. I'd been over in Australia. He had called me. I was jet lagged. He took me in the shower. He knew me through Tommy Rogers, who I'd wrestled in Florida. He knew me through Dean Malenko, who had wrestled. And then I was trying to get on with Cornette and Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Dude, we went into a shower area. He said, "Lock up." And I locked up. He said, "You got a job. I'll see you in the first match, and we'll go from there." We ran a whole show. I worked the first, third, and last match with Bobby E. Fulton. And a week or so, Cornette was like, hey, Bobby, you want to try out? Because I had, Bobby Fulton gave me a good word. So the point being is I learned to lock up. And then Malenko showed me like, oh, this is how you do how to put someone in a headlock, how to do a top wrist lock, how to go behind someone, not just shoot style, but how to go behind them and work with them, if you will. And also he taught me conditioning. There's a difference between being big and strong and bulky versus being lean and stretched out and also conditioned. He had us doing 10-on-1s. The first time I done them, Sean Waltman and I was out there in the Tampa heat on the asphalt in August, and it's hot. It's hot. And I'm doing push-ups and Hindu squats, And then even after I'd done a couple of tours up in Canada and South Africa or whatever, I came back and Larry was still out there showing me like, well, let's do 500 Hindus. And me and Rico and Willie and Jerry Flynn, we'd do like 500 Hindus. And, that kind of tell you a story. The first time I completed the 10-on-1s, which is 10 push-ups with 1 Hindu squat, 9 push-ups with 2 Hindu squats, 3 push-ups with 8. And it goes all the way down to you get down to 10 Hindu squats and 1 push-up. And then you're like, well, now you're halfway done. Go back. So basically you're doing 110 push-ups and 110 Hindu squats, which basically deep knee bends. And I remember the first, and so after that, he says, okay, now you're going to work with your time. And I was doing it like 11 or 12 minutes, probably closer to 11, because I'd been there going 4 days a week. And I remember going to, one of my friends called me from Orlando, and he said, hey, man, I'm flying home to Kentucky tomorrow. Come up, or next day or whatever it was. You care to come up here and see me? I always like going. And he said, I always go to the beach before I fly. And I was like, yeah, I'll be up. And so I drove up to Orlando, 90 miles, what it was. And I was going to spend the day with my buddy, have a few beers, whatever, go to the beach, and he's going to catch a flight next day. And I said, I got to do my conditioning, though, because I knew I'm not going to get out, I'm not going to get out of shape over 1 or 2 days because I busted my ass for 3 or 4 months at this point.
Right.
I go out to the beach. I do 10-on-1s. I get them in like 11 minutes, okay? I bust my ass out there in the sand in the sunset. And so when I come back to camp on Monday, I'm like, hey, me and myself and Malenko, Larry, we're sitting there and I go, hey, Mr. Malenko, I said, I done my 10-on-1s the other day and I did them in like 11 minutes. And he stood up and he goes, that's pretty good, kid. But I do them in 8 minutes. And I do 2 sets every day. And this fucking walked away and I thought, fuck you motherfucker. Fuck you you old son of a. And he goes, and I'm 50 years old.
Oh, shit.
Hot. I'm like, I at least done something. But he knew how to get me. You know what I'm saying? To where I eventually broke down that time to where I was getting them under 8 minutes or whatever it was. And we'd go to dinner. I end up, at that point, you're learning to. I made a friend and a mentor at that point.
Sure.
A few weeks, months later, what have you, the bottom line is like, it was a challenge. Like, okay, if this bastard can do it, so can I. And I learned to do, 2 sets. We'd always take 2-minute break in between them. But, within a few, 15, 20 minutes, you're doing, 220 push-ups, 220 sit-ups. Body, and you're like, man, if it's just a whole respect factor thing that you learned. And those guys, like I said, on Sundays, you're out there doing like 500 Hindus, and then you're doing like 100 push-ups and a 3-minute neck bridge. You just build that stuff up, It's no different than progressive overload and weightlifting or going out running a mile versus running 26 miles for a marathon. You adapt to that. And but it was a challenge when someone says, that's pretty good, kid, but I do 2 sets and I do them in, X amount of time per set. He knew how to put you out there to challenge you and make you a guy, man.
Yeah.
I mentioned he's like a father figure to me because he put that out there to me like, not disrespectful, but like, that's good, but you can do better.
Yeah. This is going to be kind of similar, but when I started plumbing, my dad was my foreman for the first 6 months, right? And by the time I started plumbing, everything was plastic and copper, And I was bitching about carrying, I don't know, like a bundle of 4-inch plastic pipe or something. My dad stopped me. He goes, hey, when I started doing this, I still had a fucking bullet in my leg from Vietnam, and that shit was all cast iron. And I never bitched again about having a hump pipe. I'm just, okay.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. He's carrying fucking all that metal with a bullet in his fucking leg.
Yep. And so, that kind of shit, hey, I'm 50 and I do that, 50% quicker than you. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good stuff, man. Respect your dad. Also, shout out to veterans, especially for our age group, the Vietnam veterans. Thank you very much. I mean, that's I know. Why don't you do this, Professor, if you don't care? He was the king of the Russian chain matches, and also a brass knuckle champion in many different. I know he did it out in Texas. Was the NWA brass knuckles champion out in Texas and also in Florida. How about this, man? Tell me a little bit about all the championships and accomplishments he had, because that's probably too many for me to name. I know at his apartment, he had the, I think it was a Southeastern. Sorry about that. My gimmick just. Catch my spit, not a mask, but something from my microphone there just slipped. Anyway, tell us about some of the championships and titles he won, because I know in Tampa he had the Southeastern, I think, tag team champ or South, in a very nice case at his apartment, and I would like to recall. It could have been either or, the tag title from Southeastern or the heavyweight championship title Southern. But anyway, I don't want to get he was Ron Fuller here. Just saying, we'll get in that segment a whole nother.
Yeah.
About some of the championship titles he had, Professor.
All right. And Bobby, just so you know, you are starting to break up a little bit, so I think we might be having.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
All right.
Let's avoid that.
Yep. So starting with the AWA, he and Bob Geigel are one-time tag team champions together. Then moving on to championship wrestling from Florida, he was the NWA Brass Knuckles champion 8 times. He was the NWA Florida Heavyweight Champion 1 time. NWA Florida Tag Team Championship 2 times with Bob Roop and once with Johnny Walker. Bob Roop, there's a name we keep running across. NWA Southern Heavyweight Championship Florida version 1 time. NWA Southern Tag Team Championship Florida version 1 time with Johnny Valentine. Southeastern Championship Wrestling. NWA Southeastern Heavyweight Championship 1 time. NWA Southeastern Television Champion 1 time. Southwest Sports. This is down in the Blanchard territory now.
Okay.
NWA American. Oh wait, Southwest Sports. Yeah, that's right. NWA American.
You're right.
Yeah, NWA American Heavyweight Champion 1 time. NWA Texas Heavyweight Champion 1 time. NWA Texas Tag Team Championship 1 time with Killer Carl Cox. And then I know you're going to poke at me because I'm going to say it, but it's then the World Wrestling Entertainment Hall of Fame class of 2018. And I know that he actually did wrestle there at one point, but we all remember his great WWF matches.
I would here's the thing about that. I'm not going to poke at you. I guess because 2 things. One is I wish there was more footage out there about him, but he was way before, videotaping, etc. There is some footage on YouTube about him. I think there's one where he's doing something with the Masked Superstar Bill E that you mentioned, where he burns the Mighty Igor with a cigar. There's some stuff where he does with his sons, as well as just a brief little bit. But he's an inductee to the Legacy inductee of 2018. I really it. Hook bait, whatever, lock, stock, and barrel. I really thought when they did the, this has been, I don't know what year it was, to be honest, Professor. They did WrestleMania from Florida, and I know it's this year they're doing it from Florida. That's fine. But I want 15, 16. We thought that they might put him in the Hall of Fame then because Dean was still working there. And I really thought, oh, man, this might be the year Larry goes in. It didn't happen. And like I said, he ended up being in 2018 as legacy inductees. But that's the way things go. And yeah, he had worked, like we mentioned earlier. He had mentioned he worked for Vince Sr., back in the late 50s. I think the Dusaks was the name I mentioned earlier. But he was a top draw in the Carolinas and Virginia. And I remember him telling me, and hey, it's the wrestling business. You do what you do. He got 33 stitches in Richmond, Virginia. I'm not sure. I honestly can't remember. I want to say someone jumped out and slashed him across the back. It could have been a front, but I can't see someone get to him from the front. Might have been from the back. And I also heard it was 76 stitches. But someone got with a knife and it straight down. They didn't stab him, but they slashed. And if I that's just, again, stuff we're looking up, on Wikipedia or someone's website or what have you. Yeah. If I recall, and you can say, hey, if Bobby, if I say, Jeremy, I got stabbed, sliced for 10 stitches, I might say, well, it fucking cost me 20 stitches, whatever. It's the wrestling business.
Yeah.
So what it be? But it was a riot. To or from the ring, and I think he was in a ring by the time he got there. If I'm not mistaken, this is one of the times that, and I could be wrong, don't fact check me, and if you want to, that's fine too. He's a heel, and from my best recollection about this is, Carl Gotch was a babyface, and he's the only one that came out and helped Larry in the ring, where they had been working earlier, as a babyface, and he got caught up in this riot. And if it wasn't this town, it was another one, but I think it was the same show in Richmond, Virginia, and Gotch came out from the front, or from the back rather, helped Larry back to the back because he saw his friend being stabbed, and wow. I think that's when they really formed a friendship. That again, this is just hearsay. While I'm at the I know Malenko told me, I got stabbed in Richmond, Virginia, Bobby. I got a bunch of stitches. I think he said 76. And he looked over at Gotch and he said, that son of a bitch right there, he's the only babyface to come out and help him. That's my recollection. And also, I want to say Kentucky. It could have been Tennessee, but he told me a story about I put tobacco in the eye. He said this lady was up there just giving him hell. Not the same night that he got stabbed or sliced or whatever. And he turned around and looked, and it was a little old lady. And I swear to you, it was either Knoxville or Harlan, Kentucky. Either way, it's Tennessee or Kentucky. When he'd say, God bless him, Bobby, meaning, fuck you hillbillies. He said he heard this little old voice saying, hey, Malenko. He said he turned, and, he'd work. Sometimes he had like one eye shut and one eye open, and or whatever, he did the whole self thing. He said he heard this little old lady, so he spun around, looked at her, and right when he did, she just went, and she spit two in the back of spit right in his eye. And she said, I got you, Malenko. I got you, son of a bitch. And he said it was right in his good eye. So that's where she got him in his good eye, and he's trying to fucking wipe the spit out of the tobacco spit out of his eye. He said it's burning like a motherfucker. You can barely see. But that little old lady got him, down there in Kentucky or Tennessee or whatever it was. But, he heard this sweet little voice like, well, I got to turn around, even though it's a heel, and then she just let it go. And so sometime when I say, you got me, Jeremy, or you got me, Professor, right in the good eye.
Oh, shit.
Get back in the day, back in the good eye. You got me in my good eye, So anyway, just some funny, not funny because, man, people, back then, I think Dean even said, sometime when you drive to towns and he come out and his tire were sliced, that was like a fucking standing ovation.
Oh, yeah.
Goodrich or Firestone or wherever, and get two new tires at a gas station in the middle of nowhere to come out and put your tires in your car because your tires got sliced because you done your job. That's like a standing ovation to him.
Well, that's, back in the olden days there, a lot of those guys, like, their job was to piss the audience off so bad that somebody out there might try to kill them.
Oh, yeah. Real quickly before you go, to the album there, I saw you talking about that. I just wanted to say, of course, he was a good interviewer, promo guy, and Larry would say, just get you some notes, talking to your mirror, know what you're going to say, have an idea, where you can go with this thing. And Terry Funk, when I met him in Knoxville, he told me, he said, I sat 2 hours after a show with Terry Funk in a locker room, and that was my all-time favorite wrestler. And he said, Bobby, he was getting ready to go from Knoxville to St. Petersburg the next day for the NWA Hall of Fame. He said, Bobby, you think I deserve to be in a Hall of Fame? And I'm sitting there going, yes, sir, I do. But I didn't say it out loud. I'm listening to him. And he goes, I don't. He goes, my father, Dory Sr. does. My brother, Dory. Your trainer, Professor Boris Malenko, deserves to be in that Hall of Fame. Damn, dude, I'm just sitting here glad to meet you. You ain't got to cut a promo. We ain't on TV. I'm just happy to be in a locker room with you, talking to you. It's just me and him. But he said, your trainer, Professor Boris Malenko, deserves to be in that Hall of Fame. And he said, he starts talking about his promos. And so in his book, Terry Funk, Hardcore, he says, Florida was where I learned about promos from Boris Malenko. He was the father of Joe and Dean Malenko, but back then he was the best damn promo man I'd ever heard. I would watch him constantly because he did such a wonderful job with long promos that had such saw the amount of time he put into his promos. He would head off to the side way before he ever went on TV. He would have his notes there, and he would be thinking out clearly exactly what he was going to say. His philosophy was that if he had a 30-second promo, that meant he had 30 seconds to improve the attendance of the show. He needed to put a lot of effort into the promo. Mm-hmm. Those 30 seconds could be a difference between a fan coming and not coming. And I always heard this saying, talk him into the building, talk him into the building. And Malenko could talk him into the building, and that's where Terry Funk got that whole deal. And he goes on to talk about the infamous match he had in Memphis with the no fans there, with him and Lawler and this and that. But talk him into the building. Malenko is one of them guys that he cut his promo. He was precise. He knew what he was talking about, and he'd talk him into the, talking about this time frame, of course, was when Terry Funk was in Florida, probably when him and Eddie Graham was working their program,
Yeah.
So, anyway, oh, why? And I'm like, yes, you do deserve to be there, sir. And he goes, no. And he goes, my daddy, you're a trainer. And I'm like, yes, sir.
Whatever you say, Mr. Funk.
Yeah. Plus, he had his dick halfway hanging out, blood over his head where he had food off. His trunks and spandex were pulled down on one leg with one knee pad on and off. He'd been juicing that night, and I'm sitting on a mat about even with all that stuff, and I'm looking up going, can you just, I'm a fan. I'm a good fan of yours,
Mr. Funk, would you put your dick away,
please? Put your dick back in your pants, go take a shower. What am I going to do? I'm just standing there, but I'm so enthralled. That's not what I'm thinking about. I'm sitting there listening to a story because he still has to travel from Knoxville, Tennessee down to St. Petersburg the next day. And he's spending an extra 2 hours on a show talking to me. Mm-hmm. That's an honor that he took that much interest. And I already met Dory Jr. at that point several times. And when I got to meet Terry, it was just, and he's telling me about my trainer, so yeah, man, that's just one of those things you just don't forget, man. Dude, I just happened to catch him, and he just continued to dress and undress and start talking to me. And I'd already worked earlier in the show, and I'd showered and shower, shaved, whatever. And I just was going over there to say thank you for the house and thank you for just wanted to meet you, let you know. Guys kind of telling me when you done Paradise Alley, the way we was just talking, two guys, but he just, continued to undress. When you're growing up in sports, all jokes aside, you know, you're in a locker room, you share a locker room with guys, whether it be in a locker room for basketball. You naturally, and in wrestling, you don't be very self-conscious. You just take your shit off and get ready to say, I got to shower, you know, get this shit off of me. And go to the hotel and dry my stuff, or go to the next town, you know. So it wasn't anything like that. It was just a matter of like just a couple, like I mentioned before, Anderson's favorite talent enhancement. Like it was just two gentlemen discussing business. One of them happened to be showered at the time. The other one's like halfway in between a shower, you know.
Yeah.
But they took time and a professionalism to help you and talk to you about that, you know. So. The importance of an interview, I guess, what I was getting at.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And your mic is breaking up more, so we're gonna have to start wrapping up here. The next point I had was the Insane Clown Posse once named an album after him, but I'm not gonna hold that against him.
Against him,
yeah.
Those cocksuckers. I met them in WCW, and I like that album. Actually, it's pretty good. If you're into that kind of shit, I actually had tried to go and see them in Huntington, West Virginia. Their show got canceled. They had worked in WCW and were working there. I think Vampiro was helping them some. Mm-hmm. Long story short, you know that great Malenko. If you're into that kind of shit, go back and watch that. I'm not trying to give them any money, but ICP. That was a funny fucking album. They dedicated to Malenko. I know Funk got played. I know Cactus Jack got paid off some stuff off the when they done was those guys, you know, they're multimillionaires and more power to them, whatever. But that album to me was pretty fucking funny. I had it and I cracked up. Fuck, you know what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do for a fucking paycheck, and that's that, and that's that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Bobby, there are two things I hate more than anything else: rattlesnakes and fucking clowns. I once chased a rattlesnake in the tall grass with a tire iron to kill the fucking thing. I might do the same. I might do the same to a fucking clown if I ever ran into one in the wild. So, you know, I just want that out there.
Fuck a clown then. I'll say this. I ain't going to the highways to check no rattlesnakes, but I hit a fucking clown in the fucking head. Without a tire iron, I kick that big red nose, big shoed, cocksucker motherfucker. Before, and I'll say it again. I said it, I don't know how many years ago. This is 2021, motherfuckers. Don't take the time to be a fucking clown. Be a mime or something. But fucking don't be a fucking clown in the wrestling business. And I'm not going into the weeds. Jeremy will with the tire and a killer snake. And I'm done because this is Bobby, the anti-mime, signing off right fucking now.
All right, guys. So yeah, we were going to record yesterday. It didn't happen because we were having some connection issues. They appear to be kicking back up today, but at least we got more done than we could have. I was going to point out that not only did Professor Malenko play a commie, he also played a Nazi, and that takes some fucking balls to do in the 1950s. You know, Bobby said he was one of the top promo guys, so we want to make sure we get that out there. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm sure that Bobby hopes the same. For the Latex Johnson, myself, Professor Jeremy Vilmur, and Comrade Bobby Blaze. Bye-bye, everybody. Or Das Vidania.